able to join us for this side event. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the UNIDIR virtual side event during this BMS 7 on the reference methodology for national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessment, insight and practical guide for implementation. This side event is about the official launch of UNIDIR reference methodology for national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessment. Since 2015, the methodology has been used to design and support the implementation of national Wham baseline assessment for 11 states. As you may know, and as you all know, Wham baseline assessment is considered as a practical tool to enable states to undertake comprehensive national Wham baseline assessment. So we are publishing this methodology to promote consistency in the use of Wham baseline assessment for interested stakeholders, including member states. My name is Mohamed Koulibaly. I am a researcher for UNIDIR, part of the CAP team and also the Wham team for UNIDIR. So I'm going to moderate this session, and we will start by listening to welcome remarks from our partners, donors, I can say, more partners than donors, and also a presentation and a release of UNIDIR reference methodology by my colleague Adi, who is one of the co-authors of this publication, and followed by a panel discussion and a question and answer, and at the end, we will have a closing remarks. So without wasting time, I want to give the floor for the first speech of the welcome remark to Ms. Sandrina Obinger, representing German Federal Foreign Office. Ms. Sandrina, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and a pleasure to be seen as a partner. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm delighted to speak here on behalf of the German federal government. I would like to thank UNIDIR warmly for inviting us to this official launch of UNIDIR's reference methodology for national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessments. Effective Wham has been for many years now at the heart of Germany's disarmament and arms control efforts. We focus our efforts on three areas in particular. Firstly, Germany supports strengthening regional exchange and networks. Our experience has shown that regional coordinated processes significantly enhance small arms control, linking different dimensions of small arms control, setting concrete targets, enabling multi-actor approaches, and setting up regular platforms for interinstitutional and international cooperation and exchange. Secondly, Germany supports capacity building measures to support the fight against illicit arms trade, as well as to improve states' capacities to control weapons and ammunition and destroy surplus stockpiles. And finally, Germany strives to actively support existing and the development of new international disarmament and arms control norms and standards. Currently, we're facing our efforts on problems arising from conventional ammunition, since in our point of view, international norms for ammunition would be very urgent. And we believe it would be beneficial to set up a process to work on global standards. Establishing a methodology for national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessments contributes, in our view, to all three of these areas. Since not only states can benefit, they can benefit greatly from national Wham baseline assessments by providing a comprehensive overview of the situation at the start of such activities and lay the ground for a subsequent needs assessment and national action plans. But it can also increase and promote consistency in this domain within regional and multilateral processes. Germany therefore proudly supports and congratulates UNIDIR on the release of a methodology for national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessments. We encourage all states, multilateral and regional organizations, as well as other interested Wham stakeholders, to consult and use the reference methodology as appropriate. We consider the task to counter the illicit trafficking of small arms, light weapons, and their ammunitions a common task for the whole international community, and therefore would like to reiterate our ongoing commitment and support in this matter. Germany will remain committed to supporting states in improving their Wham framework, strengthening connections with regional approaches, and continuing cooperation with UNIDIR on the next steps after this activity. I'm looking forward to a fruitful exchange today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Sandrina. This was a strong speech from your government. I should thank you for renewing the German engagement and commitment to support state, but also regional organization and unity in the use of this reference methodology and all Wham issues. Thank you so much for this speech. So now I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Damiano Scadamati, Head of Humanitarian Diplomacy Section, Peace and Human Rights Division, Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, Switzerland.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It is an honor indeed for me to be part of this opening of the side event. And I'd like to thank UNIDIR for organizing it and also for inviting me for this opening. My appreciation also goes to our fellow partners. It's Germany and Finland for collectively supporting the important work of UNIDIR on weapons and ammunition management. Today's side event illustrates that weapons and ammunition management is a topic of growing importance. I also see it looking at the number of participants at these side events. Despite the many achievements over the last years, we can still and should improve our approaches and enhance our impact. UNIDIR's baseline assessments in more than 10 states in the ECOWAS region so far have been a commendable and innovative way to that effect. For many years, the safe and secure management of weapons and ammunition has been a priority for Switzerland, and it will remain so in the future. Tapping into our own experience that we made in the last decades, let me share two aspects that we consider essential for weapons and ammunition management. First, Wham is a prerogative of states. International cooperation and assistance can be an effective means in their support. What is fundamental, however, is that states assume strong national ownership at all levels that should underpin implementation efforts and assistance programs. Undertaking a baseline assessment demonstrates this high level of national ownership, and it instills trust and transparency. Therefore, it is encouraging to note the commitment of all the states and the ECOWAS Commission since 2015 to conducting such assessments. These assessments can be a useful step forward for states to see where they stand, help identify priorities, and outline desired end states. Second, we have observed that safe and secure weapons and ammunition management implies a variety of expertise and capacities within national authorities. Enhancing technical capacities is important, but might not be sufficient if we aim at longer-term improvements. Sustainable weapons and ammunition management also needs the development of legal and normative frameworks, as well as dedicated structures and processes on issues such as doctrine, training, and personnel. And this throughout the entire life cycle of stockpiles. These are organizational capacities which enable partners to fully absorb, integrate, and utilize sustainably the technical assistance. In our view, a comprehensive approach is required when identifying and addressing needs and priorities, and the international ammunition technical guidelines, which have been recently published, provide guidance in this regard and are very helpful. Dear colleagues, improving our work also means to harness lessons learned. This is exactly the purpose of the reference methodology that UNIDIR launches today. We hope that it will be a useful guide to strengthen national and regional Wham. but also international cooperation and assistance. The baseline assessments have also brought to the surface national practices. They may pave the way for exploring the benefits of developing good practice guides for the ECOWAS region, as this is established and successful practice in other regions. In closing, it is our hope that the insights captured in the baseline assessments and reference methodology will further element exchanges within and across regions. In this regard, we welcome the initiative of UNIDIR to convene a weapons and ammunition management symposium for next year. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, it's a great pleasure to be part of this side event. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Switzerland, and thank you also for this strong speech. So we are lucky this morning to have very strong speech. And my takeaway from this speech is two key points that you mentioned: the national ownership of the process, which is true, but also the life cycle of weapons approach of it. Safe and secure Wham mean life cycle of weapons, which I think are two key issues that you mentioned. And finally, you mentioned a comprehensive approach, which includes international norm and standard, including the ITGs, which has been developed recently. And thank you again for the commitment of Switzerland to support this. We will then, with your permission, move to the next topic of our agenda, is to give the floor to Mr. Hardy Gizendane from researcher at UNIDIR to make the presentation and also release the UNIDIR reference methodology. Is one of the co-authors. It was a team effort, but Hardy being the lead author of this reference methodology. I should mention here that participants to this event can put in the chat function their questions and comment while they are listening to presentation. I will come to the questions and raise them. Hardy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, dear Mohammed, and excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, good afternoon, good morning. It's a sincere pleasure to be with you and to be speaking to you today. As Mohammed has mentioned, my name is Hardy Gizendane. I'm a researcher at the UN Institute for Disarmament Research. I'm the co-author, together with Himayu Shutani, the other co-author, and UNIDIR's research Wham team, who have developed and codified this reference methodology for national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessments. Maybe by providing a bit more background on UNIDIR and our workstream and approach on weapons and ammunition management. We utilize at the Institute 4 services in the delivery of our research workstream that seeks to strengthen and advance weapons and ammunition management policy and practice. The first is supporting states in establishing and assessing their Wham baselines through a nationally led multi-stakeholder process and by utilizing the reference methodology that I'm going to present on today. The second one is gathering of lessons learned and the identification of good practices and continuous learning and enhancing knowledge. The third item is the generation of demand-based and practical tools that facilitate implementation efforts on the ground. And lastly, is the utilization of UNIDIR's convening power to facilitate dialogue among states, UN entities, regional organizations, and other partners and stakeholders to advance and improve national and regional Wham policy and practice. Now today, as has been mentioned by my colleague and our moderator Mohammed, and the introductory remarks by our partners. Today it's my very sincere pleasure to introduce and to present to you such a demand-based, practical and voluntary tool that UNIDIR has now codified and developed. UNIDIR's reference methodology for national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessments, which we are delighted to launch today and to make it publicly available with this event. This reference methodology codifies the methodology that UNIDIR has developed since 2014 and that has been used to design and implement jointly with 11 states from 2015 to 2020 weapons and ammunition management baseline assessments at the national level, together with our sub-regional, regional, United Nations and other partners. So the reference methodology builds upon the lessons learned in the applicability and the refinements that have been made to the methodology in its application together with these states. I should also mention here that as well from my side and the team, we are very thankful for the cooperation and the continuous cooperation of these 11 states that have conducted national weapons and ammunition baseline assessments together with us and with our partners. Today, at the African regional level, Wham is recognized as a key contributor to the African Union Roadmap for Silencing the Guns, and it's also recognized and included as a key component and contributor to the ECOWAS 5-year action plan for the implementation of the ECOWAS Convention. So we have codified this reference methodology, which has been a demand-driven process, and we are now making this reference methodology publicly available in response to two particular needs and primary objectives. The first one is to fill the previously existing knowledge gap on how to implement a strategic national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessment. And secondly, our objective with the release of this methodology is to enhance the knowledge of United Nations entities, regional organizations and partners, specialized expert NGOs and other interested parties, and to enable them to support assistance requesting states to jointly and collaboratively undertake national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessments. In addition, by making this reference methodology publicly available, we are also seeking to enhance transparency, and we wish to contribute to the existing or the growing body of knowledge on assessment methods and approaches in the area of Wham. So now moving into the sort of the core, let's say, elements or components, only really briefly giving an overview or a snapshot, I wanted to elaborate on a number of these items. And the first one is why we do conduct a Wham baseline assessment. And it has already been mentioned in the introductory remarks and previously. It's very important that we seek to establish justified and relational reference in space and in time of Wham institutional and operational capacities, practices, and procedures, which allows comparison and measurability over time. And this in different contexts and in different peace and security environments. And such baselines can be established, followed, monitored, and reviewed across key Wham functional areas and at different levels, including at the national level. It can also inform the sub-regional and the regional level, and it can also operate at other unit levels of analysis. So national weapons and ammunition management baseline assessments are an essential prerequisite for informing and guiding effective strategic formulation, program planning, monitoring, and evaluation. So now, what precisely, with our reference methodology, what is the objective that we seek to achieve and support? This is to support and to assist states in their efforts to comprehensively, systematically, and methodologically assess Wham institutions and their policy and operational processes and capacities. Such an assessment is undertaken in alignment with the international and regional frameworks, obligations, and instruments and commitments that these states have made, as well as with the relevant international standards and technical guidelines, including the Mosaic and the IATGs, as well as other the relevant technical guidance that already exists. So specifically, a baseline assessment has 4 specific aims. First is to map national institutions and their roles and responsibilities for the full life cycle of weapons and ammunition management. Second is the identification of the current status and of the priority needs, as well as of the areas that can be enhanced across the life cycle. Third is the collective and joint identification by national stakeholders and those stakeholders participating in the baseline assessment for the host government to implement such enhancements. And the 4 points of the reference methodology is to seek and support the design or review of national roadmaps or plans operating at the strategic levels to strengthen national frameworks that govern weapons and ammunition management. Now, to move to some of the general and guiding principles of the reference methodology and its application, some of which have already been referred to as well this morning, this afternoon. First is the key and really the key guiding principle and prerequisite, which is national ownership. For national baseline assessments to be effective, the design, the planning, and the implementation of national Wham baseline assessment, as well as the findings and the results, they have to be nationally led, owned, and driven. Second is the recognition that has also been previously mentioned, is that the efforts to better manage and control arms and ammunition requires for us to take a comprehensive and integrated approach to weapons and ammunition management, which is linked and informs broader security sector, rule of law, armed violence reduction, and peace-building processes. This, in turn, requires an inclusive engagement by a wide range of stakeholders operating at different levels of Wham policy and practice, and that a baseline assessment is conducted in an inclusive and consultative manner with the full and effective participation of all stakeholders operating at these different levels. Fourth, I also wanted to mention another key guiding principle and general principle that runs through the reference methodology, which is that of a gender-sensitive approach to Wham and to arms control and disarmament more broadly, which is equally important and an integral part of this reference methodology for national Wham baseline assessments. Now, just to give an idea of where we see this reference methodology fitting and to further situate Wham baseline assessments and contextualize them, is that this reference methodology intervenes at the strategic level and at the intersection of the strategic with the operational level. It essentially includes a stakeholder mapping, a mapping of processes, and an assessment of capacities, practices, and procedures. The key functional areas that we consider part of a Wham baseline assessment and of the reference methodology are 10 functional areas, including the national coordinating mechanism and strategy, the legal and regulatory framework at the national level, transfer controls, stockpile management, marking, record keeping, the tracing of weapons and the profiling of ammunition, the processing of illicit arms and the treatment of illicit ammunition, weapons collection and disposal, including destruction. I should say that these are the commonly referred to key functional Wham areas of the reference methodology that apply across the full life cycle of management of weapons and ammunition. However, there may be additional WHAM areas that the reference methodology can include and accommodate if agreed so and identified by the host government and the state together with partners during the design and implementation phase. I would also like to make a few comments here maybe with regards to the functional WHAM areas. First is that the reference methodology that we have developed and I'm presenting today does not include or constitute a legal analysis or a legal gap analysis and review. However, it does seek to identify potential gaps therein that influence the capacities, practices, and procedures. And such a legal gap analysis can inform a baseline assessment, or it can be one of the recommended options of the baseline assessment. We, of course, also do recognize, and I wish to acknowledge this here, the distinctive nature between the management of ammunition, primarily concerned about safety, security, and accountability, and the management of weapons, about security and accountability, which is something that we recognize, that the reference methodology recognizes, and that this distinction at the operational level is recognized and is being made throughout the reference methodology. Now, I wanted to also show you what a national baseline assessment in country looks like, to give you an idea. I would not go into the details here, but just to give you an idea of the modality and the format of a national baseline assessment. This takes the form typically after the design and planning phase, which usually takes about between 3 to 4 months. In country, once in country, this takes the form of a series of consultative meetings at the strategic policy level, as well as the operational or technical levels, that facilitate an inclusive, participatory, and gender-sensitive dialogue by all relevant stakeholders and decision-making among the relevant national stakeholders on WHAM and related issues. These meetings are organized in a sequence that you see displayed here, with various national and international stakeholders that operate at different levels of governance. Now, moving on, one of the key results of a national WHAM baseline assessment and the starting point for follow-up activities and implementation to strengthen WHAM is the development of a national roadmap or a strategic plan towards a strengthened and comprehensive national framework governing weapons and ammunition management. Such a roadmap, typically presented in the form of a report, a findings report of a national WHAM baseline assessment, is included typically in an annex to that report, the findings report, and it includes the current status of the institutional capacities and processes, the WHAM enhancement opportunities and options jointly identified by the national stakeholders in the dialogue, and options for implementation by the key functional WHAM areas that I have referred to previously, prioritized over a time frame and including actor-specific attribution of WHAM roles and responsibilities. At this stage, I wanted to share with you a few examples from the 11 states that have conducted national baseline assessments so far between 2015 and 2020, and how these roadmaps or strategic plans and the WHAM baseline assessment process has been utilized by them. At the strategic level, this has been used to review or reform national security strategies, or to develop a dedicated national WHAM strategy, to inform and support the establishment of a dedicated national coordinating mechanism. In another case, it's been utilized to establish or to reposition and leverage a national Wham lead entity. In yet another case, it's been utilized to develop a dedicated national policy for ammunition management. In three of the cases, it's been utilized to inform United Nations partial arms embargo regime benchmarking processes, implementation, reporting, and monitoring, as well as in other cases to inform the legal review processes that I have referred to previously. At the operational level, baseline assessments have been an essential component that has informed and been utilized for the subsequent development and or the review of national action plans. The development and the revision and adoption of general or specific operational procedures in different Wham functional areas, as well as capacity building, programming, and activities in different areas of Wham. To give an insight and to illustrate the application of the reference methodology, UNIDIR, in the course of the second half of last year, in cooperation with the African states with whom together we have been conducting these baseline assessments, has produced Wham country insights. And I wanted to just here at this stage draw your attention to these. They're illustrative and they also show what the application and the use of this reference methodology has contributed to. Moving on, just and before I will look forward to closing my intervention, we just wanted to share with you a little bit more details about the structure and content of the reference methodology. It's been structured in a modular way that allows future users to easily extract and use the different modules. We have a module, the first module that provides an introduction, the purpose and context to national Wham baseline assessments, reference methodology, the key defining terms and terminologies, as well as all the general and guiding principles that I have referred to previously as well. It defines the purpose, the goal, and objectives of baseline assessment, and it also situates Wham baseline assessments in varying contexts and highlighting the linkages and the synergies of Wham with broader security institutions, rule of law, peace building, and conflict prevention processes. The module number 2 then is devoted and dedicated to the planning and design, the timely, effective, and efficient planning and design of a baseline assessment, including the stakeholders, participation, the scope of an assessment, and specific additional design and practical planning considerations. Module number 3 really is the core, contains the core elements of the National Wham baseline assessment methodology developed by UNIDIR together with the supporting host states, UN entities, and our other partners. This module serves as the practical guide for those implementing a national Wham baseline assessment. And it also provides guidance to those who facilitate the dialogue in country and those who report on a national Wham baseline assessment. Module number 4 then provides possible ways on the utilization of national Wham baseline assessments, possible next steps that follow the assessment, and once a first assessment has been implemented. It also looks at potential ways to further review this reference methodology and strengthen this methodology as we are moving forward. With this, I wanted to take the opportunity here to also from my side on behalf of the co-authors, the entire UNIDIR team, UNIDIR's Conventional Arms Program, to thank the government officials, those representatives and experts, and the practitioners who supported us directly or indirectly in the codification and in the development of this reference methodology, all those that have participated in the 11 baseline assessments and processes so far already, those who participated in UNIDIR meetings and events, research and related activities, as well as the reviews of drafts at different stages of this codification process. This publication and this practical tool, it would not have been possible without all of them, and we are sincerely and very much grateful for their continued cooperation and support to our UNIDIR's research-based and informed approach to strengthen Wham policy and practice. This reference methodology is now available online on UNIDIR's website. We're of course inviting you and encouraging you very much, and those interested to download it, to use it as a voluntary and practical tool moving forward. I also wanted to inform that UNIDIR, we are working on translations into a French and a Spanish version at this stage, which are expected to become available very soon in the coming weeks or months. And we look forward to further opportunities to also present this reference methodology to those of a Francophone audience and those speaking Spanish as well. Lastly, it's a voluntary and practical tool that may be subject to modifications and revisions based on new trends and findings, or the lessons learned of the future and further application of this reference methodology in other regions, and or new tools and methods that would help in further improve this reference methodology. We are very much looking forward to that. With this, I would like to thank you for this opportunity, and I would hand back over to you, Mohammed, as the moderator. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Adi, for this very clear presentation, and I hope that this will generate questions on the reference methodology. And I think that it was clear from your side that you explained the strategic approach to Wham from the UNIDIR side, the principles of the Wham, including the country assessment, which we usually do in collaboration with UN partners, but also with regional partners, as you rightly mentioned. But you also highlight the 10 functional areas of Wham, and also the format and modality, the roadmap, the national framework, and of course, you give an overview of the modules, the content of the reference methodology. All this should generate, for me, issues of understanding, questions, and clarification from the audience. I'm sure you will be happy to respond to that. Thank you so much. Now we are going to move to the panel discussion. As I mentioned earlier, we have three colleagues from ECOWAS, Biennial, and UNIDIR presenting in this panel. The first one being ECOWAS. Dr. Sani Adamu is the Deputy Head of ECOWAS Division on Small Arms. Sani is well known in this domain. So as you also know, ECOWAS has been very proactive in promoting the baseline assessment, as Hadley rightly mentioned. 8 countries out of 11 are ECOWAS member states. And also the regional organization ECOWAS has been involved in most of the Wham baseline in the field. So Sani also participates in some of these exercises, in addition to the political support that given by the regional organization. So Sani, thank you again for being here. Let me give you the floor to start this panel discussion. You have the floor, Dr. Sani.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. Yeah, Excellencies, good morning, good afternoon. I bring to you greetings from ECOWAS Commission. This is a clear demonstration of the nature and the extent of partnership that we'll be able to put together, within the framework of conducting this Wham assessment. As you can see from the backgrounder and the excellent presentation by Heidi and the various speeches since we started, of the 11 countries that have actually practically conducted the baseline, 8 of them are in ECOWAS region. This is a clear demonstration of the continuous commitment of ECOWAS member states, as well as the ECOWAS Commission, in accompanying, important initiatives, both on the continent as well as at the global level. So I wouldn't want to go into too much of the talk. Already the backgrounder has been set. I only would want to say that for us in ECOWAS region, we'll be able to actually practically put to use, some of the critical gaps that were identified during the baseline assessments. As we have heard, our member states, not only because of the full participation of, at the regional level, the participation of ECOWAS, they have not only provided the strategic, ownership, but they have also translated all the, issues that were identified during the baseline assessments, into actions. Some of these actions are particularly related to the problems that we all have in our region. The ECOWAS region is characterized by a lot of problems. The sources of arms proliferation are the same since we started this fight. The borders are porous. We have also leakages from our official stockpiles. We have also substantial presence of craft production. And the obvious thing is the consequences that we are currently facing, the armed conflicts, rebellions, in some instances, the insurgencies, crime and criminalities. And the impact of it is what we are also seeing in the high numbers of the IDPs, and the general insecurity in our region. For me, the tools which Hadi highlighted, the 10 pillars, I think are very fundamental for us in the region. And the 8 countries that have actually conducted this baseline assessment will have been able to submit, at the very highest level, the report of these assessments. And this translated into the current efforts at the individual member countries to be able to translate, the assessment into practical actions. So I would like to go through, for instance, the legal framework. The region, the ECOWAS region has different legal traditions, and we needed to have harmony. We needed to see in terms of the legal arrangements, the administrative frameworks in our member states, so that effectively we'll be able to internalize not only the ECOWAS convention, but also, other instruments. So this effort is what some of our member states that have gone through this baseline assessment, particularly Liberia, Niger, and Nigeria, have gone through in the last two to 3 years. We are able to see, continuous understanding, continuous efforts practically on the ground that these member states are making in order to internalize, to domesticate, the instruments. So legal arrangements, legal framework is important. So as a lesson, critically, since the baseline assessments in some of these countries, we have seen, massive, responses from our member states to be able to review their national laws, to review their Firearms Act, so that effectively they will be able to put, to practice some of the gaps that were identified. In terms of national coordination, we also know without a dedicated national structure, implementing these key priorities will be difficult. And in our region already, because of the convention, Article 24 of the convention obligates all the member states to put in place national commissions on small arms. And I must say that virtually all the member states are having national commissions, except for some few that we're encouraging. In fact, efforts already are in place to be able to reactivate. Some of them are moribund. For instance, in Guinea-Bissau, we'll be having challenges, of course, because of the practical political issues in Guinea-Bissau and the Gambia. But Gambia has come on board now. Guinea-Bissau, currently our colleagues are there trying to engage with the high authorities so that we'll put back the national implementation structure. This is important for ECOWAS, and I know all our partners are also accompanying us in this. So national coordination is important. And we have seen during the baseline assessment, how some of the member states reacted. Because of existing, instruments in our region, we have also already the ECOWAS Convention. With the entry into force of the ATT, we have had, instances of some countries putting parallel institutions, trying to, have them as implementation and coordination agencies. But we are making effort at the regional level now to harmonize this concern so that effectively we'll have uniformity and effectively, member states will be able to put comprehensive national implementation arrangements that will help them to implement the key priorities in all the obligations, in all the instruments. The transfer controls, this is also an important obligation. We know, and this is where the ECOWAS region is unique around the world. We have in the exemption process a unique arrangement where all our member states, the 15 member states, are consistently complying with the provision in the convention. Any arms import into the region, it has to be processed. It has to be given the exemption certificate by ECOWAS Commission, and all the member states will have to be aware, and they will have to also express their opinions in those imports. So we are consolidating, since the baseline assessments in these countries, we are consolidating further in terms of getting the exemption procedure to be strengthened, and to also get, to get it automated, so that effectively the transfer control system will be done seamlessly. Now, related to marking, Hadi made the point clearly. Without a unique marking system, it will also always be difficult to be able to institute, particularly tracing. So in our region, we have already put in place, a robust marking system where all our member states are having unique marking codes where they put in the weapons and in the weapons in their armories. And this marking system is important for us. Already it's in place, and member states increasingly, in fact, a number of them have completed in terms of marking, the statutory stockpiles of their services. So this marking arrangement is important, and we are making effort already to be able to fully accompany our member states so that this will be fully institutionalized across the region. Associated with marking, of course, is record keeping and tracing. These are very important segments and important pillars, for this baseline assessment. You cannot effectively institute tracing if your weapons are not clearly marked. And therefore, we have a robust, within the framework of the convention, we have the steps that member states are supposed to take in terms of instituting tracing requests. Of course, the ITI is also complementing, as well as other key windows that we have available, so that international best practices are always brought to bear, so that our member states will be able to effectively trace and to establish the very point when the actual initial diversion has taken place. Now, the physical security and stockpile management, I think it's also an important pillar. We have seen since the baseline assessment effort by our member states to be able to participate. ECOWAS Commission, in collaboration with the German Federal Foreign Office, we have put in place a regional center for the competency training for security and storage facilities. And this training is a 5-year strategic training support being provided by GFFO to the ECOWAS region. At this point, since 2018, we have had quite a number of representation from our member states, and we have a full roster of experts that are now already scheduled based on the training that they have gotten from this intervention. So during the baseline assessment, we have seen the gaps clearly in terms of equipment, in terms of also capacity building. And this was why ECOWAS also not only provided the capacity building training, or is providing the training, but we have also accompanied our member states with equipment support for their armories, so that effective record keeping system will be in place, and the effective security of the perimeters of their armories will also be in place. All of these efforts are based on the initial baseline assessments in the 8 countries that we have seen the necessity for us to quickly accompany member states on this. The craft production. Of course, there's no gainsaying. West Africa is endowed with a lot of artisans that are engaged in this vocation. The convention is clear on this, and is obligating member states to put in place robust, legal as well as administrative frameworks to bring, these artisans within the ambit of their national laws, so that effectively they will be able to capture what they are doing, and also to put them within the framework of the marking system that we have. So this is an important segment of the pillars, or the BA pillars, and we think in our region it's important that we're able to do a lot in this. In the coming months, we intend to undertake comprehensive survey in terms of the nature and the extent of the production capacities of the artisans that are engaged in this vocation. So I must highlight that this is an important lesson, based on what we have had in the 8 countries. Collection, we need to institute all the time, because particularly from the armories, there are a lot of the times you have excess, you have obsolete. At the community levels also, we have seen the gaps. We need to engage to be able to mop out, at the community level, arms and ammunition at that level. So these are important imperatives that I think are necessary. Border controls. There's no gainsaying. In ECOWAS, we have this free movement protocol. But what we consider building bridges rather than barriers. Our borders are convenient, transit platforms, commercial transit platforms that will encourage, the commerce, they encourage free movement of goods and services. Efforts are in place to be able to also support borderlands with relevant micro-development projects. So we have, in terms of responses of community weapons collection project, to be able to provide back to the communities, after, the weapons are mopped out, some semblance of micro-development projects, so that effectively we'll be able to institute peace and security at the community levels. So these 10 pillars are actually very important in terms of the governance of the total life cycle of weapons in our region. And we see this as important engagement with UNIDIR for us to be able to highlight all the gaps. And I must assure you that at the very highest level, member states are working hard to be able to identify what the key roadmaps that we elaborated for each of the member states. Now, looking forward, our future plan and continuing with this effective collaboration with UNIDIR is to be able to mainstream. We have already mainstreamed the Wham assessment initiative into the 5-year strategic planning process for the implementation of the ECOWAS Convention. This plan of action is 2021-2025 timeframe. We are continuing to deepen the Wham assessment in the remaining 7 countries, so that effectively across the region we have our Wham assessments fully conducted, and also to be able to mobilize effectively, resources that will allow us to effectively support our member states to implement the key priorities of the plan. This planning process is an important one. The GFFO, I must also mention, supported ECOWAS in the elaboration of this plan, and we are at the forefront. I mean, the GFFO is at the forefront together with the EU at mobilizing relevant resources, relevant partnerships, so that effectively this plan will be implemented. So this is it. I want to say once again, the regional context in West Africa, will continue to necessitate the need for us to actually key into very important initiatives like the Wham assessment by UNIDIR, and I'll show you that our ECOWAS management is fully in support of this initiative, to the extent that we have mainstreamed the Wham assessment into the ECOWAS's budget, so that we can count on sustainability. That this is one key lessons that we took, so that effectively we'll be able to have continuously not only the baseline assessment, but also the practical implementation of some of the gaps that have actually been identified looking forward. It is on this note I would like to thank you once more, UNIDIR management, as well as all the participants on this call. Thank you, Mohammed. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ECOWAS, for this speech. I think that you've been able to highlight the efforts made by ECOWAS in terms of Wham in the region, including the functional areas of Wham, marking, record keeping, tracing, and the implementation of the ECOWAS Convention, and specifically the exemption measure, which is quite unique for this region. And thank you for giving information on the way forward, the roadmap, the ECOWAS roadmap, and the support that you receive from Germany and the EU and different donors. So thank you so much. I should mention here that we will move to the second panelist. As my colleague had explained, international organization, regional organization, NGOs have been working with member states and UNIDIR to conduct Wham. And I should also give a kind of information for the agents that the demand for this tool is not only for Africa, and is spreading in other regions, in other continents, America. One of the member states which have been done the BA was Iraq. So I think there is interest, growing interest from other regions in the world for this demand for tool. And the UN partners, our UN partners have been involved in the Wham BA. UNDP was part of some of the BAs as experts team, but also we have UNMAS. So I really want to give the floor to UNMAS, Mr. Alex Rebel, to just take us through the engagement of UNMAS in terms of Wham. Alex, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you for all the introduction. And first of all, congratulations to UNIDIR for the publication of this baseline assessment. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Alex Riebel. I'm a German ammunition technical officer working with the United Nations Mine Action Service since 2011 and support our field projects with focus on weapons and ammunition management, but also developing guidelines, manuals, and standards related to ammunition management. And the release of this baseline assessment methodology is really a big step forward and more or less frames a lot of the statements or points made in the earlier statements about synchronization and harmonization and coordination between the host nations, but also implementing partners and UN entities. UNMAS is part of the Office of Rule of Law and Security Institutions and the Department of Peace Operations. And we are mandated by the General Assembly to ensure an effective, proactive, and coordinated response to the problem posed by a wide range of explosive hazards. And this includes also the legislative mandate to provide our technical expertise in responding to threats posed by unsecured and unsafe conventional weapons and ammunition stockpiles. And this is now also reflected in the United Nations Mine Action Strategy under the Strategic Outcome 1. But all this is now linked to this baseline assessment methodology. And in the past, during the 11 assessments that have been conducted, UNMAS was and is currently present in at least 8 of these different states. And it was for us very beneficial to see that the experiences and lessons identified from our Wham actions on the ground have been included in these assessments, but now also in a more consolidated methodology. We are mostly implementing on a technical level, and Hadi explained a little bit the structure of the methodology and this document. And it is really linking the Wham strategy and roadmap from the strategic level to the operational level, which is going down to the tactical level where we implement with our programs and projects and increase the safety and security, which is more or less our main task, because the handling of weapons, ammunition, and explosives comes with this high level of risk, and we want to increase the safety and security. We have our experts in the field who are pretty good and have the experience, and I also want to link in already a little bit the answer to Rodolfo's question, because we are trained on the IATGs and Mosaic, and we have the expert level knowledge that is needed to implement on this tactical level. Very often these projects that are quick projects are really helpful and increase safety and security have not been integrated very well into the national legislation or into the strategic picture. And this new methodology ensures now that the UN organizations are working together. And even when we provide this puzzle, this piece of the technical level expertise and the projects that really help on the ground are linked into a higher strategic approach and are linked into the national coordination mechanisms and national action plans, but also help to build the response of the United Nations from the different levels. And it is really good for me personally to see that these other projects, the development of the IATGs and Mosaic, are now linked together, and the different UN organizations are working together. And this is an assessment methodology that can be used by all. It is mainly dedicated to the nations themselves, but we as implementing partners and organizations can use this as a reference built on the conducted assessments, but when we start new projects, also use this to have the same approach on all different levels. And I'll stop here at this point already to give some time for questions, and I'm happy to answer more and give more details when we have more questions. Thank you very much, and congratulations again to UNIDIR for this publication.
Yeah, congratulations to UNMAS as well, Alex. I think that, as you said, UNMAS was part of this baseline assessment in at least 8 countries. And great to see that the IDs, the quanti-ID tool is also using this methodology. I mean, this is great to hear that. So The last panelist is Ms. Anna Mensah from UNIDIR. She's going to talk about the roadmap, the importance of the roadmap. But before giving the floor to my colleague Anna, I just want to recall that you can still drop your questions on the Q&A function and discussion. So we received so far some questions. Please continue to put on the chat function your comment or questions. So Anna, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. As you rightly said, I'm going to elaborate further on the roadmap, the National Weapons and Ammunition Management Roadmap. That is one of the outcomes from the baseline assessment. My colleague Hadi briefly touched upon it during the presentation of the methodology. I've had some direct follow-up messages also asking how this roadmap looks like and how it can be used. And so I just want to use this opportunity to elaborate a little further on that. So this national roadmap is one of the key results of the baseline assessment, and it forms a starting point for following up on the activities to strengthen Wham after the national baseline assessment. And so it's presented in the form of an annex, which is added to the report delivered after the baseline assessment. It shows the current status of each of the Wham functional areas. As Hadi presented, there are 10 Wham functional areas in UNIDIR's baseline assessment methodology. So the roadmap, which is developed after the baseline assessment, shows the current status of each of these Wham functional areas. And then it shows possible enhancement options. So it shows the status and then what could be done, what more could be done to improve and strengthen practices, policies, and approaches in these Wham functional areas. And then finally, it also maps the stakeholders that can support the implementation of these Wham enhancement options, as well as the timeframes, the potential timeframes that these options can be implemented in. So on the screen, you can see an example could you kindly go to the previous slide? Thank you. On the screen, you can see an example of a national Wham roadmap, which shows the different Wham functional areas, the number of options identified under each of the functional areas, and then the time frames that are color-coded on the top of the screen as well. Next slide, please. And then finally, this also goes into details into the Wham enhancement option. This is a sample snapshot of one of the, a section of the roadmaps from the baseline assessment conducted in Sierra Leone. So this is, for example, options for enhancing national legal frameworks. So we have the different options stated and also the stakeholders that can support to the right, and they are illustrated there. And then the timeframes are also shown on the left. So this is what we are talking about when we say the Wham roadmap. It just shows the current status of the Wham functional areas, the possible areas for enhancing, and then the stakeholders that can support moving forward or the implementation of the Wham enhancement option. So following baseline assessments, these are some outcome documents that are developed and are given to the states, and together with their partners, implementing partners, they are able to strengthen their Wham frameworks. Thank you, Theo. Next slide, please. Also in UNIDIR's research, as has been mentioned by Hadi and the other speakers while they were speaking, we have conducted lessons learned seminars and follow-up consultations with the states that have conducted baseline assessments, including with a view to identify some of the enabling factors that facilitate progress in Wham following the baseline assessments. So one that we saw was a robust national coordination mechanism, and I think Dr. Sani from ECOWAS also touched upon this. So in states where there is a national coordination mechanism, the follow-up and implementation of the Wham enhancement options is often more effective. We also have strong political support for Wham from high-level political actors. So in states where the national stakeholders and high-level political actors are aware of Wham, what Wham means, what improving and strengthening Wham framework will support the states to do, in these states, implementation of the enhancement options and strengthening Wham frameworks has been fairly smooth. Also, we have international cooperation and assistance. In some of the states, after the options have been identified, there are capacity gaps, including technical, logistical, and operational. And so where there are international partners, these states have been able to move forward the options that were identified. We also have effective cooperation and partnership among Wham stakeholders. And then finally, inclusive, consultative, and participatory approach to Wham, where all sectors of the population, all individuals are included. Awareness is raised on Wham as something that touches all sectors of the population, and everyone is included in the approach to strengthen weapons and ammunition management. We see progress going on further in these states. In terms of challenges, these are almost the opposite of some of the enabling factors. In the absence of the enabling factors, these challenges impede progress in Wham. These include poor sensitization and inadequate awareness on Wham, where there are resource constraints, where there are unstable security and political situations, the security agencies or the partners identified are not able to move forward the options that were identified, and also where there are coordination challenges. The options that are identified, there are often challenges in moving them forward. And also where there are varying levels of progress amongst the states in the sub-region. Sometimes progress in one state is impeded by challenges in another state. So these are some issues that we have identified following the Wham baseline assessments with the states. Next slide, please. At this point, I would like to highlight three initial observations that UNIDIR has found in our research regarding further applicability of the reference methodology. As my colleague mentioned in the presentation of the methodology, we want the methodology to be considered as a living tool that will be reviewed, refined, and can be improved to improve its utility in the future. And so from work that has been done so far, one initial observation on further applicability of the tool is implementing baseline assessments at local or subnational levels. So in some states where baseline assessments have been conducted at the national level, during the baseline assessment, it was found that there was interest in the National Coordination Agency or mechanism had an interest in conducting a dedicated local level or community-based Wham baseline assessment. And so this is one area that we could see even the methodology being further applied over there. But of course, this methodology has been designed for national level baseline assessments. And so if you'd like to use it and go a step further to the subnational level or local level, we would encourage that you do a careful consideration of mapping out the relationships that exist amongst the different actors on that level before further applying the methodology. And of course, we would welcome your feedback. Would love to hear from you on what you found, which will help us to improve the methodology. One second initial observation is on the methodology's ability to inform regional and sub-regional strategies and processes. And this one was very well elaborated by Dr. Sani from the ECOWAS Commission. So where a number of states in a sub-region or a region all conduct national level Wham baseline assessments, this supports the identification of the common risks, of vulnerabilities, of challenges and opportunities in that region. So the aggregated results of the baseline assessments of the different states in that region can inform and support the development or the review of sub-regional and regional strategies. And Dr. Sani from the ECOWAS Commission mentioned how the baseline assessments conducted in 8 states in the ECOWAS region have supported the development of a 5-year work plan for the ECOWAS. And Hadi in his presentation also mentioned how UNIDIR in partnership with the African Union has organized a series of lessons learned seminars where the states in the African region, the 10 states that have conducted the baseline assessments, came together to share their experiences and lessons from implementing the Wham enhancement options and other key issues identified in the baseline assessments. And this has supported the African Union Silencing the Guns. It has helped to develop, to generate information that can support review and such further processes. So this is what we would like to share as well in terms of initial observations on further applicability. So states in sub-regions or regions can come together, conduct different national level baseline assessments and aggregate the data or information collected to move forward in Wham on a sub-regional or on a regional level. And then finally, in terms of refining the scope and the methodology, Hadi presented that there are 10 main Wham functional areas that the methodology looks at. But then we have also found in our research that in particular context, the methodology can be expanded, or certain Wham functional areas can be included in the methodology. These include border controls, private security companies, community-based Wham, and craft production, which Dr. Sani mentioned as an important area in the ECOWAS region. So this is just to highlight the key message here is that the UNIDIR methodology currently offers 10 Wham and 10 Wham functional areas, but based on states' national context, in their design of the baseline assessments, they can include additional functional areas that are relevant to their context. Again, in terms of the guiding questions, when you consult the methodology, you will see that there are a series of guiding questions per functional area. These guiding questions are just guiding questions as the name suggests, but then there is scope to deepen them further, to add additional ones based on your context. And also how baseline assessments can take into account arms-related and security dynamics and risks of different contexts, including armed actors, terrorist groups, organized community safe programming. All these are welcome, and these are initial ideas that we see that the methodology can be refined or reviewed in these areas. So we encourage states, regional organizations, entities focused on Wham to use this methodology, to expand it, to add additional areas, adapt it to different contexts, and to share feedback with UNIDIR, which will support us in refining and further improving the utility of the methodology. Thank you very much, Mohammed. I will end here and give back the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna, for this, this presentation. I think that we thank you so much. I will not repeat what you said. I think that it was so clear from our side. I just want to go to the questions that we received from the chat function. The first question from Rodolfo Gonzalo, Gambia Obezo. What are the relation of Wham with Mosaic and ITG from UNODA? This is only for Africa region or for any part of the world? So I think that Alex started responding to these questions, but I want to give the floor back to Hadi just to expand a little bit. And then there is another question from David Onazi. I'm afraid there is not much consideration of health as a framework for the baseline assessment methodology. The health facilities are at the receiving end if the victims of slums and light weapons. So this is to you, Hadi, as well. So these are the two questions I received from the chat. Please, you have the floor. And other panelists, please feel free to respond 1 minute before we go to closing remarks. Hadi.
Thanks, Mohammed, and thanks to the participants for the questions, including Rodolfo. Thank you. Yeah, I believe Alex has already touched upon it. What I can further add to that, and what I've briefly spoken about, is that conceptually and strategically speaking, when talking about the strategic or policy level, we talk about weapons and ammunition management. Whereas when in the reference methodology, when we look at operational levels or in country, we engage at the operational level, at the technical level with national technical experts. Clearly, this distinction is important. I've referred to the management of ammunition and explosives. which are and can be, and for which the guidance contained in the IATGs exists. And on the weapons management side, we have the mosaic. So that's also over the years how this distinction, of course, and how these two set of guidelines have come about in their existence as well. So that maybe, I hope that does address the question by Rodolfo. Of course, UNODA is a long-standing partner of UNIDIR and continue to work with UNODA and with our other UN partners, including UNMAS and OROLSI that has also been mentioned, of course, in that regard. Whether this is only for the African region or whether it's also the reference methodology applies and can be applied and expanded to other regions and environments as well. I've briefly talked about the environments, peace and security environments, but elaborating on that a little bit more, we feel that reference methodology for Wham should be useful and applicable for all interested states and in different contexts. So we believe that this reference methodology can be used in an environment where there may be indications towards an increasingly volatile security situation, or where there may even be a conflict. But that said, that case would be applicable on the condition that the parties involved are willing and committed to address arms and ammunition and related risks in such a context. Other than that, it can be applied in a transitioning security environment, transitioning security environment or stabilization environment in a post-conflict setting. And we believe that it can also be applied and is applicable in contexts outside of in a non-conflict setting, but in contexts and environments that experience high levels of armed violence, including localized or urban armed violence as well. So that just to give a little bit more of the context on the environments where we see this reference methodology applicable. Now to the question regarding the importance of Wham contributing to health and sustainable development and goals. We do address these, we recognize these. They're also in specific modules and specific guiding questions that are utilized in the assessment. We do explore these linkages, notably in the recording, what type of records are being kept, what type of information is documented in the cases of misuse of weapons and ammunition, etc. But I do recognize that point, and we are referring to the reference methodology and the modules for that as well. But the point is also very well noted from our side. Mohammed, I think from my side, that's the responses I could provide, and I've been taking some time. So please, back over to you or to other colleagues and panelists as well.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know if there is, Anna or Alex who want to add. I know that Alex made a quick response to the first question. If Anna has no more comment on the two questions, then we will move to the closing remarks. So Anna is fine. Okay, I can see that she's shaking there. So it's fine for Anna. Okay, Alex too is fine. Thank you so much. And thank you to the panelists for this great presentation on different issues relating to the methodology, the ECOWAS engagement, the roadmap, the international cooperation, the UN mass participation, and all the UN agencies. Thank you so much. That was great. Now we are now ending this session. And before giving the floor for the closing remark, I just want to highlight the fact that this is an open dialogue that UNIDIR is initiating, you feel free to email or send messages or visit our website. And you have the link on the chat function on the publication as well. So feel free to download the reference methodology, and we will be pleased to respond to any questions after this side event. So thank you so much for your participation. And I'm going now to close this event by giving the floor to Ms. Sana Urawa. She's the first Secretary Permanent Mission of Finland to the United Nations in New York. Ms. Sana, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Coulibaly, and greetings from New York, where the 7th Biennial meeting of the UNPO is just kicking off. So thank you for this timely event, and we're honored to co-host. And a special thanks to our excellent panelists today. It's been very insightful. Finland is, of course, a strong supporter of UNIDIR's conventional arms program, and since 2014, we've supported the work stream on national and regional approaches to weapons and ammunition management, and we look forward to continuing this cooperation with you. I'll be very brief. I know I'm conscious of the time we've spent, but I just wanted to highlight perhaps two things before we close. Firstly, I think all the speakers today have emphasized the bottom-up approach and the importance of national ownership. And as we heard from Mr. Gizendana and others, UNIDIR's Wham baseline assessment with states are really centered on national ownership, facilitated by multi-stakeholder dialogue and at the national level. And this bottom-up approach I find very important because it contributes to shared responsibility among national stakeholders for the governance, for the accountability, and also for the sustainability of this work. And the national ownership, of course, means that national priorities will differ from country to country. And I have to say that Finland is especially encouraged by the clear articulation of priorities in for example, the Somalia's Wham baseline assessment, which we've supported. And even more importantly, the tangible progress that we see taking forward the areas for action there. Secondly, I just wanted to highlight the integrated approach to peace, security, and development agendas, which we've seen more and more emphasis on by the Secretary General himself and the UN system as a whole. And we think this is especially central in the area of weapons and ammunition management, which is at the heart of reducing armed violence, really, as we've heard from our speakers today. A robust Wham framework with appropriate implementation capacities helps create an environment that can enable broader peace and security agendas to foster and succeed. In Finland, we are actually in the implementation phase of our third National Women, Peace and Security Action Plan today. And we've traditionally had a very comprehensive approach to both the WPS agenda, but also in the integration and development of youth, peace and security agenda. So we're very, very happy to see UNIDIR's reference methodology emphasize both of these approaches and then to have a really integrated approach, including gender sensitivity and gender responsiveness and the inclusion of youth and young women in particular. So just in closing, let me re-emphasize Finland's commitment to support states on improving their Wham frameworks. And I really encourage all of our participants and member states to consult the reference methodology and undertake national baseline assessments with the support of UNIDIR and other relevant entities. And as I also noted, that there will be French and Spanish language versions coming up of the reference methodology this fall. I hope this will be even easier in the future, and I hope this will provide an opportunity for states to utilize them. So thank you again for my part, and just wishing everyone a great week. And those of you who are attending the BMS 7, I hope we will have very fruitful discussions this week. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Sana, for this brilliant speech, and you concluded very well. As we said here, we don't comment closing remarks, so this was closing remarks. So thank you so much. Thank to all the participants. Thank to my colleagues in Geneva, and thank to Alex and Sunny. Thanks for Germany, Switzerland, Finland. Thanks to all. and have a successful meeting with the BMS 7. Thank you for participating in this side event. Bye-bye.